Bonjour, class. Take my phone off the hook. All right. Today we are finishing up lesson 20. So continuing on learning about using reflexive verbs. So far we've learned how to use them in the present tense and we've learned how to use them in the imperative. So now it's time to look at how to use them in the passé composé. So take a minute, think to yourself, how do I form the passé composé? Ms. Harris, it was so long ago, I don't remember. Well, let me jog your memory. It was two parts, a helping verb and a past participle, right? Okay, so the past participle, some of them are just irregular and you have to memorize, and some of them follow a specific pattern. So ER verbs become E acute, RE verbs become U, and IR verbs become I. The endings change. Now the helping verb. This is a verb you conjugate in the present tense, okay? And it is either avoir or être. So far, you know that every verb uses avoir as the helping verb, except for a list that you memorized, and we call them the Vandertramps as kind of a mnemonic device to help you remember them, and they use être as the helping verb. Also, you know that verbs that use être as the helping verb, the past participle has to agree in number and gender with the subject. Okay, this is the entirety of what you know currently about passé composé. So reflexive verbs also use être as the helping verb. So let's look at what these look like in the past tense, in the passé composé. So this is the verb se laver, to wash oneself. Okay, so reflexive verbs, we know the reflexive pronoun has to be in there, so it's first. So je me suis, that's the conjugated form of être for je. And then laver, add an e if the subject is feminine. Je me suis lavé. Okay, so in this case, instead of just helping verb past participle, it's reflexive pronoun helping verb past participle. Okay, same for all of them. Tu t'es lavé. Il, elle, s'est lavé. If it's elle, you add the e. Nous nous sommes lavés. It's always going to have an s, because nous is always plural. But if the group you're saying we is all women, then it would be an extra e as well. Vous vous êtes lavé. Vous vous êtes lavé. An extra e if it's feminine, and an s if you're saying you all. No s if you're referring to one person formally. And il, elle, plural, se sont lavés. Okay? So it's just the same as you would expect of any verb that uses être as the helping verb, except there's the reflexive pronoun in front, and that's it. The past participle also agrees, just like it does with Vandertramps. Basically, if the helping verb is être, then it agrees. Okay, in a negative sentence, we know that the reflexive pronoun can't be separated from our verb, so je ne me suis pas lavé. Je ne me suis pas lavé. I didn't wash up. And in a question, just like normal, tu t'es lavé? Or est-ce que tu t'es lavé? Did you wash up? So our formula is the subject plus reflexive pronoun plus the present tense of être plus the past participle that does have to agree with the subject. Okay, that's it. It's not crazy complicated. Let's get a few more of these. So, like I was saying, you have to have agreement. So, Eric s'est promené. Eric went for a walk. Mélanie s'est promenée. Pronounced the same, but there's an extra e because it has to agree with Mélanie, which is singular and feminine, so we need an e. Okay, however, there is no agreement in the construction reflexive verb plus part of the body. For example, Paul et Vincent se sont lavés. Paul and Vincent are washing themselves, right? There's no part of the body that they're washing specifically, they're just washing up, washing themselves. So we have this s to agree with the subject. Paul et Vincent is plural and masculine, so we just add an S. However, ils se sont lavés les mains, they were washing, or they washed their hands, there is no agreement on the past participle. Because they're not washing themselves, so it doesn't need to agree with the subject. They're washing hands. It just doesn't agree. That's it. Okay, so that's everything with the passé composé and reflexive verbs. So I want you to pause this video now after I show you the work you're going to do, and then come back, because I am going to add in reflexive verbs in the infinitive form, but it's really short. Right now I want you to practice passé composé. So you have 2 activities to do with the passé composé. Sorry. So Isabelle is on vacation in Paris. Say what she did yesterday. Use the passé composé of the suggested verbs. Be logical. Okay, so I've suggested to you some verbs. You'll use each of them one time. And you just have to figure out from context what verb you need to use and then put it in the passé composé. So let's do the first one together. Isabelle, something, à 8h du matin. Okay? Looking at these options, I'm going to go with she gets up at 8 o'clock in the morning. Okay? So we know that our formula is subject, and then reflexive pronoun, je suis, then present tense of être, which for Isabelle is a. Now already I see I need to add an apostrophe. Isabelle, c'est. And then our past participle, which is lever. And then I need to make my past participle match in number and gender with my subject, so I add an E, because Isabelle is singular and feminine. And that's it. Just make sure you're highlighting your answers a different color. Let's back up. So that's the first one. Just fill in the blank. And then the second one is a little bit more difficult, but it's really, really, really good practice. So describe what the following people did, then indicate in what order they did the following things. Then write your description using the passé composé. Okay, so for each of these, you're going to have 3 verbs. Okay, and then you're going to have the subject. What you need to do first is decide what order your subject did these things, in which your subject did these things. So you can see here, we've got prendre le petit déjeuner, eat breakfast, s'habiller, get dressed, and partir pour l'école, leave for school. So the order that they would do these things is 1, 2, 3. Not all of these are going to be in 1, 2, 3 order. You're going to have to rearrange them. That's where you can write here. Then, once you have decided in what order your subject did these things, you have to conjugate the verb for the passé composé. Now, eagle-eyed viewers at home will notice that not all of these are reflexive, and not all of them are going to use être as the helping verb. So, for example, this is slightly out of order. Hold on. We'll say he got dressed and then he ate breakfast, because that's the order I wrote these in. Okay, sorry. So the first one, s'habiller, to get dressed, is reflexive. Okay, so we've got our reflexive pronoun, present tense of être, past participle. Okay, but our next one, prendre, that's not reflexive, and it's also not a Vandertramp, so we're going to use avoir as our helping verb. Il a pris le petit déjeuner. And then partir, not a reflexive, but it is one of the Vandertramps, so il est parti pour l'école. Okay, so you have to pay attention. Is this a Vandertramp? Is this a reflexive verb? Or is it just a regular verb? Now, if it's a regular verb that uses avoir as the past participle, does it have a regular, or that uses être as the helping verb, does it have a regular past participle or an irregular past participle? There's a bunch to think about here, which is what makes it a really good practice, so I want you to try very hard, because it is important for upcoming lessons that you understand and can produce the passé composé. You need to be able to reliably write sentences in the passé composé. All right, and so you'll just do that for each of these. You get the subject each time. Nous, vous, Sophie, les touristes, je. All right, so I want you to do these two practice activities, and then check your answers with the keys at the bottom. And when you're done, come back to the video because we've got one more short little thing to go over, which I'm gonna go do now. It's so short. Okay. You've made your way back. You did those two activities and you're feeling really good about using the passé composé in general, but especially the passé composé with reflexive verbs. So our last thing to complete your knowledge of reflexive verbs is that what do you do when you need to use them in the infinitive form in a sentence? So you're using the near future construction, the conjugated form of aller plus your verb, like I'm going to go to the store. Or in this case, since they're reflexive verbs, I am going to wash up before dinner. In those cases, it's kind of just what you would expect. So, je vais, I am going, conjugated form of aller, and then me promener. So, the infinitive form of this is se promener, right? To go for a walk. All you have to do to use reflexive verbs in an infinitive construction is to change the reflexive pronoun to match the subject. Right? So I'm going to go for a walk. Nous n'allons pas nous reposer. We are not going to rest. That's it. That's all. Just make sure you change the reflexive pronoun to match the subject when you're using them in an infinitive construction. So with that, you can go do the last practice on the sheet I've given you, which is say what the following people are going to do. Use the construction aller plus infinitive with the verbs of the list. Be logical. So you can see here, you'll get a little one-sentence description. J'ai soif, I'm thirsty. What am I going to do? I am going to stop. Je vais m'arrêter. All right, so I could see here, means stop, to stop. And so that's the one I chose. We're going to stop in a cafe. And then I changed the se to me to match the subject. That's all you're doing. Do that. Then check the key. This should feel pretty easy, though, after two of these, which are much harder. Let me know if you have any questions. After this, we are done with this lesson, and we're done with Unit 5. We went through it really quickly because we didn't take some quizzes, and we're not going to take a quiz on Lesson 20 either. We're going to move right into the test. So I'm going to post your Unit 5 test prep after this. It's a little shorter, kind of a lot shorter than most of your other tests. It's not as big a deal. But that'll be posted Wednesday, the 28th of April. And then we'll move right on into Unit 6, where we're going to learn a whole new verb tense. So I will see you then. Au revoir.